Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and thank you guys for your continued support. I hope you guys are doing good out there, continuing to be more intentional with yourselves, with your healing and growing. And I think that's something that we all need to uh, focus more on, because we should all be trying to at least gain new knowledge each day to break old patterns and any generational curses that we have. I mean, of course, because we are human and we are not perfect. So there's always areas that we need improvement in, right? So today I wanted to talk about something that I think would help along your journey and being more intentional, and that is identifying unhealthy personality traits. Now, some would like to say those should be easy to find, right? Because if a person just comes off it with bad energy, then I should be able to tell. No, it's not that easy all the time. And sometimes sometimes we say that until we get ourselves caught up in a situation where we then end up in a whirlwind of mess, and then we're like, how did I get here? How did I miss the red flags? And so you see how that happens. And so I think sometimes some people are an ultimate finesser, and sometimes you just meet your match. Because sometimes you could be the one with the unhealthy personality trait as well. And sometimes you don't even notice it because you're operating from a place, from your subconscious. Because this is something, or this is a habit of yours. So it's not always the other person. Sometimes we have to do a heavy self-reflection. And that's what I want you guys to do as I go through these, because I'm all about focusing on self first, working on the inside out, and then everything else around you will fall into place once you start working on things from the inside out. And so, yeah, we're going to get right into it. So if you guys see me looking down, I'm trying to make sure I stick to certain things and I don't forget some stuff. So the first one is peace at any price. So, and this is a generalized definition that I came up with. These people will do anything to avoid conflict, disappointing others, or having to say no. So I'll give you an example. So say, for instance, you're upset with your significant other and you're walking around all day trying to figure out how you can address this situation without making them upset or without causing friction. And now, because you've kind of scared yourself into not having the conversation, you just don't address it. So you just suppress everything that you feel. And then in turn, they just walking around all happy. Like they good. They not tripping. They not noticing anything. Now, you might have your moments where you might be moping around and they ask you what's wrong and you like, oh, nothing. But deep down inside, you suppress something that you truly want to address, but just so that you can keep the peace, you don't say anything. And then in turn, that disturbs your peace, because now you're upset about something they know nothing about. And so later on down the road, other things tend to make that one small situation boil over into something that it didn't even have to be. And so now, instead of just communicating effectively and getting it out the way, you're now exploding, which is not a healthy way to go about anything. So so do some reflection, guys. See if you're that person, or if you've been in situations with someone who was that person. Because I always believe that being passive aggressive is never a way to be. I've been that person. I'm not talking on anything that I didn't have to, reflect on for myself. So when you do these reflections, be honest with yourself. Really be honest with yourself and say, hey, have I done this before? And some of us like to be in denial, but if you really truly want to heal and grow, you have to get out of that stage of or just a comfort zone, because that's really all it is. It's just a comfort zone. Then we have here number 2, which is Jezebel. Some would like to call it Jezebel Spirit, which is in the Bible. So a lot of people like to say Jezebel Spirit is a spirit of promiscuity. Yeah, I don't know how to say the word. A spirit of being promiscuous. Or and it's more directed towards a woman. So a woman that's promiscuous or over-sexualized. So usually that's the term that's used for it. I mean, that's the definition that's used for it. But in the Bible, it more so speaks to a more manipulative spirit and controlling. And so I'm going to give you guys this example that I have. And I had to make sure I wrote this down verbatim so I didn't confuse you guys on what I was saying. And first, I'll give you the general definition that I came up with. So this person just tends to, or you, because if it's you, then, you know. So this person, instead of just being transparent and honest, they create a story to get what they want out of the situation, to get the results to work in their favor or to control the situation. So I call this person the finesser. So have you guys ever heard of someone who said that they were gonna, or you've heard a story from someone who said, oh, my ex said they were gonna commit suicide because I was gonna break up with them? My ex told me a story about a girl who said she would do that. She would show up to his place and be looking in his windows and stalking him and doing all this craziness. And usually that's because the person just wants your attention. Now, do I believe there are some people who will do it? Yes. So I think you, of course, should tread lightly in those situations. Don't just, be insensitive. There are certain ways that you can kind of figure out, okay, is this person being honest? Or have someone go and check on them, if they really are going to do that. Reach out to the closest person to them. Because at that point, if their ex, it's not your place to, and that's another, conversation for another day. But that's just an example of someone who's manipulative and who is AKA Jezebel Spirit. And then there's also those people who, because they want to pull at your heartstrings to get you to do something for them. So what they say is, okay, say for instance, you have a friend who they always come to ask you for something all the time. And a lot of the times the reason why they have to ask you, like say for instance, for money, because that's usually a lot of times the reason why people, how people find themselves being very irresponsible. Then they have to come to you and ask you for something because they know that you don't want to see them out on the street. You don't want to see them without. So they'll pull on your heartstrings, tell you this. They'll add some extra sauce on the story to make it seem like they are in so much need of help because they've had extra bills come up, just adding extra lies onto the story when really they just blew their money and was irresponsible. But when they come to you, they try to put on, some extra, like some extra sauce to the story. So yeah, that is some examples. So if you guys, I'm sure a lot of people have ran into that second one, because I have. Yeah. And we're gonna go ahead and go to the next one, which is let's see, the avoider. They are masters at the stiff arm. No one gets in and everyone remains on a surface level as far as relationships go. Now, I will say this. I have been this person somewhat, because I cannot say that I've been on surface level with everyone that I've had in my life. Like, if I felt like you made me feel safe enough to be vulnerable with you, then I called you my friend. And so I can't say that I was with everyone. Or I'm that way 100%, because I don't avoid relationships. Like, if I feel like safe with you and I can trust you, I will build a relationship with you, build a rapport, and let's see where it goes. So an example is, okay, so to me, I feel like we all should use our discernment. But then what we allow ourselves to do is allow our past experiences and trauma to keep us in a stronghold instead of teach us. So instead of allowing our past experiences to teach us, we would rather let it, hold us back. And not take it as a teaching moment, like, okay, going forward, this is what I will allow and will not allow. So with this, you are creating boundaries, and you're not allowing people to come in and just do anything. And I think a lot of people who may have issues with setting boundaries are avoiders, because they don't want to have to go through that. And you ever heard of people who call themselves introverts? And a lot of times they say that they're introverts, but in reality, they're an avoider, because they don't want to place themselves in situations to be around people where they have to be vulnerable or show who they really are, and that makes them feel uncomfortable. So they rather just avoid those situations at all costs. Let me see, what else am I missing? And I think in most cases with this, a lot of the, with people that are like this, they do want to be vulnerable. They're the ones that want to be the most vulnerable. But, traumatic experiences, like I said, and yeah, it can, and most relationships with them can be very transactional. They don't have or create or build genuine, solid relationships. They deal with people when they need to deal with them, and then they just keep it pushing. Yeah. When I really think about it, it really be tough out here, just dealing with people and relationships. I think what it comes down to is that, like I said, you have to use discernment. And then what also has to happen is you setting your boundaries, and then you communicating. Because if you avoid doing those things, it'll make it harder for you to create relationships with people. And I think that's what makes it harder, is when you just allow people to come into your life and do whatever. Now, not to say people aren't going to test you, because human instinct is just to test you. Not to say all people are bad people because they test you, but people will test you to see how far they can go, because basic human instinct is selfish. People will look out for themselves in most cases. And if you allow them to just do what they want, and take advantage, and sometimes people don't do that on purpose. They don't try to take advantage of you on purpose. It's just like, okay, I know that person's going to be there for me, so, let me just go ask them to be there for me or for something that I need. And, after a while, the person doesn't even notice that they're doing it, because you've made it a comfort. You've made it comfortable for them to come to you. So just think about that. Yeah. And then we have cold as ice. I think this person is somewhat like an avoider, but they appear not to need feelings or human contact, and how they feel is not a factor in life, but what they achieve is. So to me, I feel like this person comes off as a person who neglects their own feelings because they feel like it's not important in the grand scheme of things. And I feel like there is a healthy way of separating business from personal. Because in some cases, you do have to shut off your emotions to get the job done, to get things done. And I also feel like when it comes to work on yourself, sometimes you have to not allow your emotions to control your decision making when it comes to growing. Like if you're a procrastinator, if you're impatient, if you're a person that likes to control everything, knowing you can't, sometimes you have to not allow your emotions to overwhelm you. And sometimes you just have to get the job done. But then there's the other side where you have to allow yourself to feel feelings. You're not a robot. So we're human beings. If we all suppress our feelings, which I feel like a lot of people do, and that's why a lot of people have mental health issues a lot of times, is due to not doing the things that I've addressed before, which is communicating and being able to just feel and release. I think a lot of us would be in a better place in life, mentally. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so I just think this person, they just feel like their importance is in the material things, so their rewards and accolades. And in most cases, you find people that are, or in fame, most people that you find that are like this are famous people. And you notice that there are a lot of them, taking their own life because they're not happy inside. They use their material things to validate them, their awards to validate them, and ultimately it doesn't help. So they're still unhappy. And then we have the last one, which is the performer. They're always on stage. Most were raised by parents who manipulated love and attention, so they learned to perform. They learn to perform for their parents' attention. And I will say this one is the one that hit me the hardest. And I'll give you guys an example of my situation after this one, after I give you the generalized definition that I came up with or example. This person is a people pleaser, someone who feels like just being themselves is not enough for anyone to like or appreciate them. Usually this person seeks for attention in the wrong places, and in most cases becomes attached to toxic people who notice and don't mind taking advantage, because this person often does not set boundaries because they're afraid if they do, they could lose said personal opportunities. So they tend to sacrifice their worth, all to keep people in their life. And that's almost like the person that chooses, what is it? I think it's a piece over price over peace. I don't know how I forgot that fast. But yeah, peace at any price. Lord Jesus. Peace at any price, y'all. But to me, that's kind of the same thing. The only difference is you are doing anything to make sure that you're putting on stunts and shows pretty much. And you pretty much will do anything to feel validated in a relationship. And I will say, okay, so I'll go into my situation with my father growing up. This is how, my situation kind of subconsciously, how I operated subconsciously through my life and especially through my adulthood and relationships, because I realized that in my relationship with my father when I was younger, okay, he abused substances, alcohol, drugs. And so because he did that, in the moments where he was not using, he was very agitated. But then when he was using, he was more softer. So he was easier to deal with. And so in the moments where he was not using, I found myself being very defensive when I would talk to him, because, and then so in the moments that I would try to find a way to prove myself to him so that I guess would do right in his eyes at some point, or felt like I was doing right in his eyes. So, I was pretty much tiptoeing around him, just putting on a performance. And then when he was so much easier. It's sad to say, but he was so much easier to deal with when he was under the influence, which is sad. And so I found myself when he wasn't under the influence being something that I was not, just to please him. And so I also found that going forward in relationships with men. And so I had to realize for myself, hey, where is this coming from? Once I realized that, I was like, ding, 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 I know where it's coming from. Now that I'm aware, how can I change this? So I had to start setting boundaries. I had to start speaking my mind. I had to just start saying what I felt, and not to communicate it in a harsh way, but in an effective way where the person understands me now, and I'm not suppressing it and having a peace at any price, because that's not healthy at all. And that can, and really all of these things, some of these things kind of correlate with each other, but you guys get what I'm saying. So I just wanted to go into the last thing here, which is just a few things or a few ways that you guys can identify if any of these things or these personality traits are things that you deal with, or are they things that you've found yourselves running into because of certain patterns that you have. Because sometimes we do have patterns that allow us to run into the same people in different bodies. And then sometimes it's just us. And so we continue to deal with certain situations until we learn our lesson. So the first question is, write out in detail how your own testimony relates to your needs for love, security, and significance. And so I'm doing this, guys, because this is a very intentional work. I want you guys to be intentional with answering these questions and figuring out what place is this coming from. So write out in detail how your own testimony relates to your needs for love, security, and significance. 2, write out in detail what you think your personality type is. Do you have characteristics from each, or is it only one of these? 3, write out in detail which personality traits you can and will change. And with this, be honest with yourself and be patient. Don't go into it thinking you can do it all at once, or thinking that it's supposed to happen fast, and then you get overwhelmed, so then you stop and then revert back to your old ways. Please don't do that. Be patient with yourself and be honest with yourself. Then the last one is write out in detail how you feel your childhood influenced your personality, just like I did with the performer thing. How I spoke it in detail and how that correlated with the things that I do now in my adulthood, and how my childhood trauma just affected me, and until I started to realize it and become aware of where it was coming from, and then I was able to begin to heal. So guys, I just want you guys to do the intentional work. I told you guys that I'm all about being intentional because I want us to be better as people. And I think, I may not be able to change the whole world, but I can start with 1 or 2 people or 3 people or 4 people, and those people can spread it to whomever they choose to spread it to. And that's what I want you guys to do, share. I'm not saying share on behalf of me and my own ego. I feel like everything that I do is to service you guys. So I want to make sure that I'm being intentional with what my message is. And that's why you don't see me out here every single day saying things and putting out content every day. I could. But some of the things I want to do content on is sometimes coming from, I have to think about it. Is it coming from a place of ego and me just wanting to spew my own, spew things that are not beneficial in the grand scheme of things? So yeah, I hope this works for you guys, and I just want you to be more intentional and love yourself. It starts with you. And I have some stuff coming up for you guys. And I'll be sharing that as soon as, I wrap up with the small details of it all. But I thank you guys for listening once again. And until next time, be blessed.